One of the challenges I have been having recently is finding a range of miniatures that I can use primarily for my Warhammer Quest project, but I wanted it to be a little bit more extensive of a line of miniatures to so that I could also use them for games like Five Leagues from the Borderland, Forbidden Solemn, and Rangers of Shadow Deep. Recently, Ash Quest did a review of a company called Next Level Miniatures. I was impressed with what I saw, and the pricing was perfect, so I ordered some models. Let's get into this. Welcome to Solitary RPG. Let's start off real quick talking about Next Level Miniatures. This is an up and coming company. They have a small catalog at the moment. However, they're getting ready to add to that catalog because they just finished a Kickstarter that's going to add a bunch of new models to their range. One of the things I like about the company is they're a US-based company, and if you order is over $25, it's free shipping. And right now, shipping costs are just killing me personally for things that I want to buy because everything's just going up. So the fact that they're offering such a low price point to ship miniatures to you is awesome, because spending $25 get you a lot of models from this company because their price points are pretty good. These character models, the regular, like I'll just say human size models, they're $1.50 a piece. So it's a very affordable line. So I really got into this company after watching a video from AshQuest, who did a review on it. AshQuest does a lot of videos focused around Hero Quest, which is very similar to Warhammer Quest. They're kind of connected in a roundabout way. And he showed off these models, and I was like, I could use those for my Warhammer Quest project. And then once I spent some time on their website, I realized I could use their models for a lot of things. And when their current Kickstarter fulfills and they bring that product line into the fold, I'm going to be really excited because they have a lot of great stuff coming. And I think all of it would work perfect for Warhammer Quest, Five Leagues from the Borderland, Forbidden Solemn for the most part. It's not as twisted as Forbidden Solemn, but you could probably use some of the stuff. And also things like Rangers of Shadow Deep and any other generic miniature game or role-playing games. So what I want to do is kind of talk you through the models that I purchased. I didn't purchase everything, but the models are very affordable. I think I'm a little over $25 in this order. I might have been like $30 in everything that I got. I don't recall, but I still didn't spend a lot to get these miniatures. And if I was to try to buy all these miniatures that represent Warhammer Quest, the actual miniatures from Warhammer Quest, one of these models, the Witch Hunter, probably would have just cost me $60 on its own. And nostalgia means a lot to me, but not at that price point. So this is a good alternative, in my opinion, for models to be used in your Warhammer Quest project or just generic fantasy models. They all do come with your standard 25mm base. Obviously, the bigger models come with a 2-inch base, and that would be for the Minotaur, whatever. So anyways, I'm going to zoom in on my camera to really show off the quality of these models, because this is a kind of far back view and you can't see the details. And we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about the material these are made out of and the things you can do with this material. Let's start with probably the most iconic miniature from the Warhammer Quest line, which would be the Barbarian. Yes, this is not a match for the Barbarian that comes with Warhammer Quest, but this is a pretty good looking Barbarian if you ask me. Now you're going to notice some flashing, and that is this little plastic up here on top of its head and around this arm. These models are made out of what's known as Ceocast, which is a plastic that manufacturers have started using that allows them to use spin cast technology. And spin cast technology is how they make metal miniatures, where you have a pancake mold and you put it in a machine and you pour the plastic in and it spins to get all the bubbles and things out. And it's just an affordable way for new companies to start producing miniatures. Yes, you're not going to get the GW, crazy poses and looks for the newer miniatures. This is going to be kind of a throwback of how miniatures were made back in the day, which is cool because Warhammer Quest is an old game. So you may have to remove this flashing. Now I paid $1.49 for this model. I could not buy the barbarian model from Warhammer Quest for $1.49 if I wanted to, unless it was smashed and looked like total crap. So this to me is a good alternative model for that. Now you're going to notice they come on a base, which is got a little bit of texture to it. I can trim these models off the base and just put them onto a regular flat base, or buy a decorative base like a cobblestone base or some sort of just stonework base to make it look like it belongs in a dungeon. I could also just paint that image, that kind of an image, onto the base if I wanted to. I have options. I'm probably going to leave them on this base and just not put any kind of grass or anything on them. Just kind of give it like a generic dirt base color. That way I can use them in other games and it like wouldn't look too odd for me. And again, I don't get hung up on that. If it's on a green base and I'm walking through a dungeon, I'll be just fine. So it is up to you if you want to take them off the base or decorate it. But yeah, this is our barbarian. So I can check this model off my list of models that I need for my project. Next, we have an elf. And it's got a bow, which is important for Warhammer Quest. It's a good looking model. I like the aesthetics of it. I like how the hair is kind of just in I want to say a bun, but it's lower, so I guess it's a low knot. I don't know. It's not a top knot. So anyways, I like the look. I just like how this model turned out. Can't wait to paint it. But it's a good looking elf model, nice pointy ears, and just awesome. So great detail. Not a lot of things like you see in a GW model hanging off the models. There's not a lot of like skulls and doohickeys and gems and tassels and things like that like you see in their newer model range. This is just a good model with a little bit of detail to add some personality and something for painters to paint. So very cool. This could be just about anything you wanted it to be. A generic fighter model. You can make it a paladin if you want to. You could do a lot of different things. Yes, it's got a little piece of flashing there that needs to be trimmed off. But for $1.49, let's face it, the price is right. Now the sword is bent a little bit. That's normal with plastic miniatures of any sort. And you just gotta boil some water. Get it not like super hot, but you want it really, boiling water, like a cup of coffee style water. Dip the sword in there, bend it straight, run it under cold water. That will change the memory of the plastic so that it stays straight. It's a pretty standard trick. If you haven't ever done it, you may want to do some video research. There's a little bit of flashing on the edge of this cape right here, which will come off nice and easily. Now, I have sanded on a few of these models. I've never worked with CeoCast before. It's a newer product for me. It doesn't sand like plastic. It takes a little bit of work. So like these little nodules here, you're going to want to cut those off with an X-Acto blade or whatever product you may use for cutting off your plastic. And then you might want to start with a little bit of a heavier grit sanding stick and then move down to a finer grit. I just noticed that it doesn't, fine grit sand sticks, like little fingernail files and things like that, doesn't cut into this stuff quickly. It takes a little bit longer to do it. It's just the material. It's not as bad as bones material. Like you can't even really sand bone material. It's so soft. You can sand it. It just takes a little bit more effort than plastic. That's all. Now these are dwarf models. The one on the left is a little bit thin, in my opinion, for a dwarf model, but would make an excellent halfling model. And then you have what we would traditionally see as a dwarf model, especially from the Warhammer line. They like to make their dwarves kind of short and stocky. And this miniature is fantastic. Yes, there's flashing that needs to be removed from the model, but I really love the look of the model. But this one's like, it's sold as a dwarf warrior, but it's a little on the thin side. And I'm okay with it because I can use this as a halfling model and just have a good time because it's about the same size or a little bit taller than the dwarf. So yeah, that'll work. But there's also other dwarf models in the range. So this isn't the only like stocky dwarf model. There's like 2 or 3 other ones. But yeah, you can take a look at those if those aesthetics look better. But for what I'm doing, I think these are going to work out just fine. If I was to try to buy the GW Witch Hunter model from the Warhammer Quest line, it's just stupidly priced. It matches your traditional witch hunters with the hat and the cloaks and stuff. It's got the crossbow that just glues in. And I think it's going to work out fine. And again, this was $1.49. Price is perfect for what I'm trying to work with. Now we got this model. Could use this for a variety of different things, especially if you're playing some of the expansions for Warhammer Quest or some of your other fantasy games that you might want to use, because it's got these skulls on the knees, so this could be good or evil. You know, skulls aren't necessarily chaos all the time, like GW likes to make us think. But it's a good-looking model, and it's got a really nice texture to the back of this cloak. And I don't know if my camera's going to pick it up that well. There it is. Look at that texture. So I really like that. Now for painting on something like that with that really fine texture, you're going to want to thin your paints down so that the paint doesn't clog up that texture. But this could be used as a magic caster if I wanted to. And it's got like a mace, so this could be a magic caster. Or this could be a paladin or whatever you wanted it to be. Good, evil, who cares? You know, paint it up how you want. But for $1.49, it's a good model that can be used in a couple different ways in my collection. Same with this model. Again, we got really fine detail on that front piece and on the shoulders. Just love it. Yes, this is flashing. It's not a hook, and there's flashing here. Those are things that need to be cut off, but I will take care of all that. You can see the seam going along the head. Really, this is going to require a little bit of effort. I've been painting miniatures for so long. I'm so used to removing mold lines and flashing for models. It's second nature to me. If you're younger or you're just getting into the hobby and you haven't experienced a lot of that because you play a lot of GW games or more modern games where the casting process has changed quite a bit, it may take some experience, but they make mold line removing tools now. GW sells them, Monument Hobby sells them, or you can just use the backside of an X-Acto blade, which is what I would probably end up doing for some of the detail work, and all that molding will go away, and just be mindful of it. So yeah, this model can be used as your caster as well. It's got a little club with a skull on it. So this could be used for a lot of different things as well. But I just thought it was a cool model. I like how he's holding his hand up like that. So one of the more challenging models that I was trying to find was a minotaur. Minotaur. Because these vary when you start looking at different miniatures lines in size and looks and all that kind of stuff. I like how this one looks with the double axes and his head falling off like that. Maybe he got too close to one of his axes. I just haven't glued it on. But it works because if I trim the base down around its feet, I can get the model to just fit inside a 1-inch square. It's going to hang over a little bit. Obviously, the arms are going to hang over quite a bit. And that's just something I'm going to have to deal with. But I do think this one looks a lot better than the one that comes with Warhammer Quest. Now, this one wasn't $1.49. This one was a little bit more expensive. It was either $3.99 or $4.99. Still a hell of a lot cheaper than trying to buy the original one, and looks a lot better. and his head keeps falling off because I got to get it glued on, and I got to wash the model before I glue it down. So anyways, now one of the challenges with this miniature line, just like many other miniatures line, they don't have a variety of different model poses. This is the only one they have, but I'm okay with that. If you look at the original Warhammer Quest and you look at the line of miniatures they were using, all the orcs are the same pose, all the Skaven are the same pose, the goblins, so on and so on. The only things that really changed are your characters, but they didn't offer a variety of different poses in the original game. So I'm okay that I'm not going to have 3 different poses for this model or some of the other models that I'm going to be using for my encounters. I guess we're just going to harken back to that's how it was originally, and that's what we're going to do. So we've got that model off our list. Now, looking at everything that Next Level Miniatures has to offer, they are currently short 2 models in the core set of miniatures that would be used for Warhammer Quest. They do not have an orc with bow, so these are their orc models. They are not super tall, like in height, like you would see in modern games of like Age of Sigmar and stuff, where they make the orcs super big. They're about the same height as the regular character models, just a little bit bigger, but that's okay. And you have 2 of them with hand weapons. You got this double-handed axe and this cleaver axe, but we don't have an orc with a bow. Now, they do offer a hobgoblin with a bow. So I think this will work out just fine alongside these orcs for Warhammer Quest or any other fantasy miniature game that you want orcs with bows. Just use the hobgoblins. Plus, they can also just be regular hobgoblins on top of that. So they can serve double duty. I'm hoping maybe as this company grows its miniature line that they will recognize how close they are to providing all of the miniatures for Warhammer Quest in the core set and some of the expansion material, and start leaning into that a little bit and give us an orc with a bow, keeping with the aesthetic that they already have. I think that would be awesome. But for right now, I can just proxy in the hobgoblin and I'm good to go. Goblins, we have the same kind of a situation going on. We do not have a goblin with a bow, but we do have the goblin with a spear who's pointing forwards like, I'm gonna get you. And we can easily say a spear is a thrown weapon for the purpose of the game. So I'm okay with that. The fact that they're all going to be pointing forward like that, it is what it is. I can live with it. If I really wanted to, I could cut the arm off and I could slide it down and do some other things with posing if I wanted to. But I think for the most part, I'll just paint them up. Would it be nice if it was a little bit more of a generic pose with just the arm going down? Yes, but we don't have that. So that's what we have for right now. And this goblin, it has a different aesthetic than the goblin with the spear. Its face, it doesn't have the real pointy nose or anything like that. I could do a head swap. So like I could chop the head off of this model and put this head on so I could keep the aesthetic looking the same for all of my miniatures. Or I could just deal with it, and there's different species of goblins, and this one just happens to be the warrior type with the sword and the shield. This one happens to be the throwing type that throws the weapon. There's always things you can do if you wanted to. If the head is really an issue because it's different, a head swap would be easy to do. Again, these aren't terribly expensive, so it's not like I'm chopping up a $35 model or something like that. So if you wanted to do a head swap, you could. And maybe I could chop off this arm as well and put the spear in it and give me another kind of a different look. So there's things I can do with the magic of a razor blade and some green stuff, and I can make these goblins all look a little bit different. Now, as far as Snotlings go, this is the closest thing in this miniature range for a Snotling. It's some kind of a weird creature, but I think it's going to work just fine as a Snotling. It is about the same size as a goblin, but just a little bit shorter, which will work just fine with me. And I can just get a bunch of these and put them on the table for snotlings. I think they look kind of goofy and funny, which snotlings do. And who's to say, why are snotlings supposed to just be smaller goblins? Oh, wait, they're supposed to be smaller goblins. But anyways, I can use these for right now. Maybe in the future, this company will produce something more specific for a snotling that can be used for Warhammer Quest. Spiders. So this was one of those areas that I was really struggling with for spiders. Lots of people make spiders, lots of companies, Reaper and makes a variety of different spiders. And then there's all the old Warhammer Fantasy spiders and the new Age of Sigmar spiders and this spider and that spider. And none of them were working for me because it's all about the aesthetic. It's about everything matching. And that's why I really wanted to focus on one miniature line, because at least then everything's going to be kind of coming from one point of view of the company. And the spiders were important. These are wolf spiders. That's what they call them. They're just big spiders, but they kind of have a fur aesthetic to them, and which is fine. But these are going to work, and they're cheap and affordable, and I can get hundreds of them and have them all over my table, and I was really happy with those. Now, they currently do not have a giant bat available to purchase, but the current Kickstarter that's being fulfilled will have giant bats in it. But they do have these giant bees. I'm like, well, bee, that will work just fine. It's a flying thing that can sting or bite me. So I can use it until the bat is released. And even after the bat is released, I might still keep these because I could still use them in proxy of bats because I think they look cool. Like we got these giant, they got bat wings on them, but they're just bees. So I was quite pleased with these as a proxy model. And again, I'm also using this line of miniatures for other generic fantasy games. So I could probably use this for other games as well. But as far as Warhammer Quest goes, this will work out just fine as a proxy for the bats. And since we're talking about bats, let's talk about rats. They do not have a giant rat currently. The Kickstarter, when it fulfills, will have a zombie rat or a plague rat. It's got like open wounds and stuff on it, and it's supposed to be a larger rat. But they do sell this base, which is just a swarm of rats. If I don't like the rat that they're producing, let's say the pox marks or like the open wounds are too much for me, and if I can't get in there and putty them up and sculpt them up and make it go away, make it look like a normal rat, I could always go out and probably find a generic rat to put on top of this base because I think that would look really cool. But yeah, so they do have this rat swarm. It's really inexpensive, so why not? And maybe this could be the one thing where I go out and buy the original rats from Warhammer Quest, because you can get those relatively inexpensively and just glue one of them on top of this base. But this material, this Ceocast, so one of the selling points of this material is you don't have to prime it. You can just paint it. So what you would do is you would wash it with some soapy water and a scrub, like a toothbrush or something. What you want to get out is all the release agent from the casting process. And once you get that all out, you're supposed to be able to just start painting this material. I've never worked with it before. So what I did is I washed one of the rat bases, and all I did was took a brown wash and just washed it, because a wash is really thin down paint. Yeah, there's other things in a wash to make it work the way it does, but for the most part, it's just a really thin down paint. So it's not necessarily the most adhesive paint that you can use, with all the way the pigments are all watered down. And it's holding on the material quite nicely. So I'm kind of leaning in that direction that you do not need to prime them if you do not want to. I will end up priming my models simply because I will do a zenithal highlight. And what that basically means is I'm going to prime the model black, and then from like a 45-degree angle, I'm going to spritz it with some white. So that way it creates natural shadows under like the arms and underneath the loincloth, and just it creates a natural shadow. And then I use my paints very thin, so when you paint paints over white, it's naturally brighter, and when you paint paints over black, it's naturally darker. So just helps with the painting process. Okay, so that was a look at Next Level's miniatures, the ones that I purchased. Yes, they have skeleton warriors, they have dark elves, they have Skaven, they have one like rat model, which is going to work perfectly for Skaven, and it's actually very reminiscent of Skaven miniatures. And I really hope Next Level Miniatures realizes what they're doing right now as far as creating a product line that can be used specifically for Warhammer Quest, but also for generic fantasy miniatures. The next Kickstarter, they posted some images of some models they've started making for the current Kickstarter that's being fulfilled. They do have in there a generic wizard with a pointy hat, kind of a Gandalf wizard, which will work awesome for Warhammer Quest. And they're going to have the bat, and there's a lot of other cool miniatures in there. If you go to their website, link in the description, you can find doors and all kinds of cool stuff that you can use for any type of generic fantasy game. But I really hope they lean into this concept that they're actually really close to having everything. Anybody trying to collect up a bunch of models to use for Warhammer Quest, because you don't want to spend the stupid amount of money to buy the original ones, they're super close to having all that. So thank you for watching, and have a great day.